Good afternoon, everyone. Morning for our West Coast folks. We're going to give everyone a few minutes to get in, and then Trey's going to kick off the webinar today. Um, we have a lot of attendees coming. I know you're all really excited to learn more about reporting. This, just as a reminder, as always, will be recorded and shared after. You can share that link with your teams, and we'll have it available in our um, bank of material as well to share with you. So just one more minute, letting people trickle in. All right, I think we can get going. People can still join as we go through. All right, Trey, do you wanna, so today we'll be going through reporting best practices. I'm just here to moderate. Trey will take you through the majority of the work today. So if you wanna click the next slide, Trey, that'd be great. So by now I know most of you, I'm Lacey, the head of solutions here. Just some quick housekeeping things. Make sure to put your questions in the question and answer section. If you could include your company, that'd be great, just so if we have to follow up with you in individual training sessions, if you're a current customer, or sales sessions if you're a prospective customer. This will only be seen by us. I'll verbally ask your question out to Trey, but won't include who it's from. We're going to give you some quick context into the demonstration, and we'll also follow by time for those questions. And it'll be about 30 minutes today. Our goal is to share with you what we see retailers doing with real life examples and provide you with reporting best practices to use. So like I said, I'm just here to moderate, but Trey's gonna take it over from here. So I'll let him take the reins.
All right. Hello, everybody. I think many of you as well have met me throughout the process of various webinars that we've given. But for those of you that haven't, my name is Trey. I'm one of the solutions consultants at the Toolio team. I have a background in retail experience from TJX in planning and merchandising. And at current state, I work with customers to go through training and adoption related to workflows and how we can best utilize Toolio within your organization. So, as Lacey mentioned, today we'll really be focusing on the reporting side of things. I'll dive into some of the out of the box reports that we have, as well as some reports that we've created, some examples of ways that you can kind of adjust and change what it is that you're looking at. Before we dive into this, I do want to go through a quick agenda. So, like I said, building your reports, any formatting or conditional formatting to help you best look at the items that you really want to report on, especially dependent on who it is that you're having a conversation with. Some things to kind of align on before we move forward are just some key terms. So for those of you that are familiar with Toolio and the platform, these will be just a repeat of some information that you already know. But for anyone that is newer to the platform, I want to go through a couple of words that you'll hear me utilize today. So namely is a view. A view is just how the data is displayed, and a lot of our reports are just manipulations of specific views that you might be looking at. We also have the idea of metrics and variance. So a metric in Toolio is a specified data point that you're looking at. Is that a gross sales units, gross sales dollars, an average unit ticket, something like that? Your variant is going to be the comparison of a metric. So, a lot of times you want to look at your performance this year to last year. The metric would be gross sales units. The variant would be percent change this year versus last year. We'll go through this and align through this in a lot of the reports that we look at today, but these are just some things to call out as we are moving forward. Some other things you'll hear me say are time frame and time group. A time frame is going to be specific to the dates that you're looking at. Is it all of 2022? Is it all of 2023? Is it month to date? Is it year to date? And your time group is going to be, how are those dates actually grouped? Do I care to look by quarter? Do I want to look by month? Is it by week? Maybe it's a year if I'm looking at a lot of data. So these are all different terms that you'll hear us say today. And these are things that you can manipulate within your reporting views to adjust how the data looks. So for a quick refresh, if you're looking at the lower left of your screen, a metric would be gross sales retail. Your variant is going to be actual LOI, or that percent variance to last year. Within the tool, you have some different ways that data can be displayed. This is just a quick general guide of what you're going to be looking at today, and we'll walk through this, but these are just some things to talk through as we move forward. So we don't want to say thank you yet. I'm going to get out of here and we're going to dive into our merchandise plan module. So in merchandise plan, when you click in, your tool might look different depending on what your default view is. I'm right now pulled into my Toolio top line product performance. In the blue button where my cursor is on the left side of your screen, this is going to be your view menu. Out of the box, Toolio is going to have Toolio workflows and Toolio reports. So one of the beauties of Toolio is that you have all these out of the box reports preloaded, but then you can also customize them and you can save as your own version of something depending on what it is that you want to look at. So in the reports, we are in this top line product performance. This is going to be a department, division, class level iteration of various metrics and their variants that you want to look at. So in here, you're looking at the accessories department. If we broke that out using the little caret, you can see how that actually breaks down by division, by class, to see if there are any differences that you would want to call out with performance within a specific division. Across the view here to the right, you have all of the different metrics that are pulled in. So gross sales, AUR actual, plan, how was it last year? And I won't name them all for you, but you can see that there's quite a few that you could pull into your view depending on what it is that you want to look at. So this is just a preloaded view that you have. You have various filters that you can pull and utilize. Right now, I filtered out anything that was uncategorized. So I'm looking truly at just my sales for the last week. You have groupings and you can adjust and toggle where your totals are showed. So an example of that is that I can roll up total accessories, or I can break that out because I've chosen to toggle my show totals. Same thing with sorting. You can sort high to low, low to high, whatever it may be. So there's a lot of customizability that you have, and we won't spend too much time here, but I just kind of wanted to walk through really where it is that you can make adjustments to your reports within the tool. Now, as we move through this, and as you get comfortable, or maybe you're already comfortable and you want to make your reporting a little bit more robust, you might find yourself wanting to make some edits. In order to make edits, those can all be done within your same view menu, and you have control to the various metrics and variants that are actually pulled into your specific report. So in this case, if we were looking at our top line product performance and we wanted to use this as a starting point, but maybe we wanted to take out some of the information, we can toggle these checkboxes to take pieces out, to add pieces in. You can use the double lines where my grab cursor is to drag and drop things in different orders, depending on what feels better for you. Coupled with that, as you're looking at your metrics, if you wanted to get more specific and you're still building out and you're kind of playing plug and play of what's going to work for us as an organization, we can dive into the arrows where my cursor is, which will open up our variant menu. So now we're looking at gross sales AUR, and we have the variants that are pulled into this view displayed as well. So maybe you only want to look at actuals. You can go through by your metrics and you can unclick things, and same thing, you drag and drop. But as you unclick, this menu is going to stay open so long as you're working in it. Once you've decided you have everything pulled in, you click out, and that will now reload your view with some of the adjustments that you've made. So again, you can see how things break out, adjustments that were made. Right now, I'm only looking at my AUR actual, gross sales retail actual, and I've made some adjustments there. Moving along into kind of another iteration of this report is a class category performance, which is very similar to what we were looking at. It's just broken out a little bit differently. So we're looking at our division, our department, and our class right now with metrics across the top. If we look into women's, we can look at each department and the performance, really highlighting your variances here. You can utilize your conditional formatting to make those variances even more clear. So in this case, we have a highlight to highlight anything positive in green, and then anything that goes negative, we have it highlighted in a red coloration down here. These all will toggle the same way depending on whatever level of granularity it is that you're looking at within your specific report. Another report that you could use, so I'm going to go through a couple different reports today, and another one that you could use is, let me drag my bar out of the way so I can see. Another report you could use would be this year versus last year. So this might be an indicator of some different metrics and variants that you want to look at as they compare to how did we perform last year. I think this is one that always comes up, especially as you're looking to make edits to a plan, and maybe you just want to report to get a quick idea of what's going on, or you have a Monday morning, let's see, month to date, year to date, how are we doing compared to last year? So this could be another report. Right now, I have this by our division. So for a little orientation, we have our time groups and time frames up at the top. So if we're looking here, we're looking at the plan year of 2022. Maybe I want to adjust that and pull in 2023. That will reload when you make that adjustment. And the plan years that are associated here are based off of the configurations within your specific tenant. So if you're on 454, 445, or Gregorian, these will all align with the dates that are used across the other modules and the other views within your organization's tenant. If you ever need a refresher, you can always hover over the time frame here. So this will give you month to date. We're looking at August 27th through September 16th. The reason that we're looking that way is this is going to be all of your actualized time periods within that month to date, within the month of, in this case, it would be September. If you wanted to look at this week, you could pull that in as well. And then if you're looking at, well, what is my year to date? This would be the start of my fiscal year 2023 through the most recent actualized time period, which ended on September 16th, but we know we're on the 20th. So maybe there are some additional sales I want to have pulled in here, and I can go into my time groups and really quickly edit this. Maybe I'm going to pull in this week, and we'll click out. And now we have this week, month to date, and year to date to get an indicator of how are we selling so far. And looking down across the metrics we have on the left, our gross sales retail being first, you can see that if we look at our comparison to last year, men's is doing fantastic. It's up almost 77%. Women is up almost 30%. Kids is up only 4%. So maybe that's a place where, hey, we're trending up, but maybe I want to dive into this a little bit more, figure out, are there any opportunities that I can build this increase in sales even higher, like my other divisions are growing. Just like the other view that we were looking at, this is a customized view, but you can really easily toggle and adjust if you wanted to add other things in here. And part of that being that your views are going to function similar to a pivot table. So you'll notice here we have time across the top with our divisions separated below that. If you wanted to see that in a different way, you can drag this division into your rows, and that will load the report for you in a different format. So now we only have our times over here where my cursor is, and everything's grouped by total right now. So you're just looking at gross sales retail at a total level. But if you want to break that out, you could see it now in a more horizontal format this week, month to date, year to date, rather than having each one broken out side by side. So the point being that these views are going to be customizable within the formatting, but also within the ease of use while you're actually talking to them. And, if you want to make edits on the fly, you can make that edit. And then if you decide that it's not something you want to save, you can just refresh your page and it will revert back to the original setup that you had before. Continuing forward, so we've looked at class category, we've done some considerations to this year and last year, and now we want to move into our last piece, which would be open to buy, right? So we're thinking this is a Monday morning. I have an idea of where we're trending to last year, where we're trending to a more specified granularity of my divisions or my departments. Now I want to get a sense of where are we open? Are there places where my on order and my receipt plans aren't matching? Do I need to account for that? Am I overselling on men's is up, 77%? Do I have the on order and the receipts coming in to support that? I think if we're to continue with that story, a good indicator would be looking at this report. We have our division, our department, and our class. We have our time, our month across the top, broken out by the specific metrics that we're looking at. If we're to consider men's and continue on with that example, you notice here that our on order ticket actual is about 2.5 million. Our plan, however, is nearly 3.6 million. So we're open about $1 million. We're trending up 70 and we're open about $1 million. That right there is a great indicator. Hey, there are some more pieces of information that I'm going to need to dive into. Is there anything I can pull up? Continuing forward on that, I know sometimes it's hard if there's goods that can't be pulled up or can't be shipped, air versus boat, whatever it may be. But something to look at would be, okay, that's October. What am I looking at in November? November, I'm closed $8 million. So maybe there's opportunity to find another million within the men's classes that are working to see if I can get the vendor to ship them early or something to really account for and keep the trend going. One thing about this that we touched on, and I want to show you how you can dive into it, is some of the conditional formatting opportunities you have within the tool. So right now we're looking at a view, it's just a lot of numbers, and depending on how many timeframes you're looking at. So right now it's the next 26 weeks. If you were looking at a longer time frame, it might get a little bit overwhelming to look at just numbers. So in the tool, you have the option to add in your conditional formatting. So in your view button at the bottom, you have conditional formatting, which you have a lot of different rules that you can throw in here. But if we wanted to, we can just add a rule ourselves, or you could copy it from another view. If you knew, hey, on this view, I have a rule that I like and I want to use, I'm just going to copy it over. If you wanted to add a rule, you'll click your add rule and we will add a filter. So this is going to be on a metric. And from there, so we have our metric and we're going to select, in this case, our open to buy, ticket. So if we click out of this, we can do a single color to just highlight, or you can do a color scale, depending on how you want to look at this. In this single color, you could have like a matching rule, which in this case, if we're talking open to buy, maybe I want to highlight anything that is less than 0. So anything that has gone negative, and I want to fill that in a yellow so that I call it out to myself. When you add that rule, you'll see now that anywhere where your open to buy plan has gone negative, it is highlighted, and that's going to be an indicator to you, hey, this is something I need to pay attention to. That's where all of those red and green highlights came from as well. Those all conditional formatting. And then once you add a conditional formatting rule to a view, you will want to make sure that you go in and in your view options on the left at the bottom, you do save. Anytime that you make a change to a view, if you like the way that it is, you want to make sure that you're saving. Otherwise, if I were to refresh this page, the changes that I made, the rule that I add, it's not going to save down with the view. And now my open to buy is no longer highlighted. So while you have that flexibility in your reporting and what it is that you're looking at, you do want to make sure that you're saving or save as if you're building off of your out of the box views. The last thing I want to show you before we take a pause for some questions related to merchandise reporting would be something that's a little bit more longer term. right? So you might want to look long term and compare year over year some ROI KPIs to get an idea of, how are we trending as a business? What changes have we seen year over year? So this is where we're looking at our gross sales retail, we're looking at margins, allowances. Right now, it's broken out by year. So we're seeing all the way back to 2020 through today of 2023. Again, keep in mind that if you're looking at actuals, the current year you're in is only going to be actualized up until the most recent imports of your files. But it will still be a great starting point to indicate, what is the trend that I'm seeing year over year? Part of this is that within your reports, especially if you're in a meeting, you're sharing on screen, you have the opportunity in the tool to leverage some of our visualizations. That is done through this button on the upper right next to history and your scenario button, where if you click this, it will turn your visualization on, and then you can decide which metrics you want to have displayed. So if I wanted to look at what is my trend of gross sales units over time, in this case, it's going to be broken out, which each plot representing the value by year. And you can see now in a linear representation, what does that visualization look like? Maybe I want to do the same comparison to my gross sales retail, see everything is in line. You can get a sense of how are units and dollars tracking. Does that align with what I was, experiencing? Another piece of this related to how you're looking at this is we're looking at the time group of a year. Maybe you wanted to get a little more granular here and you want to look quarterly to see where everything is trending to get a better sense of where were those peaks and valleys over time. When you do load, your visualization turns off, but you can turn it back on and we could pull back in gross sales units again, and maybe we'll look at retail again, but you can see where things were flat as we went through 2020. We had a spike as sales started to pick up going into 2021, but you can see where those big peaks were and valleys. So this is going to give you an indicator of places where you might want to dive in a little bit more specifically and see, all right, what caused the peak in Q4, probably holiday. We had a little bit of dip, that post-holiday slump, but then we came back up again in Q2. What was driving those summer sales? Can we repeat that again as we start to look toward our 2024 planning? So that's just a starting point of some of the different levers you can start to pull within your merchandise plan reporting. Again, this is all going to be based off of actuals that you've planned from your previous plans or actuals that we've ingested from your data feeds. So if you're utilizing your actual variant, that is going to be true numbers that are getting sent into Toolio, especially if you're looking at those historic timeframes. If you're looking at your plan variants, that would be a plan specific to the scenario that you're utilizing. Now, Lacey, I'm sure there might be some questions since we've gone through a lot of information. So I want to give it a pause here before we dive into some item level reporting that we can do and answer any questions if there are any.
Yes. So the first question was for the top line product performance, can you pull in styles per week? So I did want to clarify here. So we'll break this into two questions. The first would be if they mean choice count plan. So Trey, could you pull in choice count plan as a metric into this?
Yes. So you could pull in choices per week, and that would give you an idea of what the choices per week were broken out again at whatever level you're looking at.
And there is a choices per week workflow that if you're not doing, just reach out to your CSM or your trainer and we can take you through that. The second part, which I didn't know if this was clarifying, if this meant could we bring it down to the style level? I'll answer that. This will cue Trey up for what he's doing next, which is item planning. Right now, we're in the merchandise planning module, which is really only those top line targets at those aggregate levels of your hierarchy. So to get down to the style level will be item planning, which is what we'll go to next.
Awesome.
The next question. Yep. So it was the choice count was the answer to that. Perfect. So we covered both of those open questions.
Awesome. All right. So as Lacey nicely softballed me into, is we can dive into item plan where you can get a little bit more specific, a lot more specific, a lot more granular with what you're looking at. And to continue kind of a little bit of our story playing here, we've gone through, it's Monday morning, you're all responsible for your areas, and you've called out some things based on your dollar performance or your unit performance. Hey, I need to go look with a little more specificity to get a sense of one, what's driving sales, or two, what's hindering sales. So jumping into our item plan module, same thing as before, you'll just drive yourself to item plan across the top. When you load your item plan, it might open up to a planning view, but just like the other views, you can toggle different reports that you might want to look at. So just like we had within our merchandise plan module, there are various reports that you could look at that relate to your item plan module. There's a lot of out of the box views that you have, and you can pull those in and make adjustments. Anything with the lock will be out of the box, and you'll just have to create a save as. So we could look at a bestsellers report, which would be what we're looking at behind here, edited a little bit just to bring down some of the information, but this is built off of your out of the box bestsellers. This is going to take into account your styles. It brings in color. And then because it's item plan and this data feeds, a lot of this data feeds from your product master data, you'll be able to access the image URL as well. And you can always click on that and see an enlarged image as you're going through. So they don't have to stay small in the view that you see over on the left. You could look at a larger cadence just to see, hey, what am I actually looking at? Now, this view is going to be pretty robust when you first open it if all of your items pull in. So you can start to leverage your filters. Right now, we're looking at gross sales retail is above 0. You could also start to filter down by a class or a category if you wanted to look at something specific. You can toggle your groups too. So right now, we're not really grouping by anything. We just have a total at the top. But if you did want to get more specific, you can bring a group in. Maybe I want to group by color. And now I'm seeing just my styles, and I can break this out to see if there are specific colors that fall underneath that to get a better sense of, at a style level, which choices against that style are performing the best, what colors are performing the best, and start to build out some strategies from there. Just like in your merchandise plan, your groups, your sorts, time groups, and time frames are going to work the same. If you wanted to adjust, right now we're looking at last week, but we could adjust our time frame or plan year, or we could use a relative time frame to look. Maybe we wanted to look at our last 4 weeks. This will adjust everything, and your numbers again are going to be based off of those actuals that you have pulled into the plan from your sales feed, and the color and URL and this product and the style name are all coming from your product feed. Just like before, you can break them out and get a sense of what is your performance, and still leveraging the conditional formatting rules that you had in merch plan. You can create those in item plan as well. Another information you want to look at. So we had our style name. We were grouped by title. We are now looking at colors. Maybe we want to make that a little bit larger of a consideration and look at color sales at a total level. So that's another option within your report, is grouping by color. And then I have it by class. So this gives me an indicator of course, which colors are performing. And, as you head toward holiday season, you might want to start to say, okay, when are our holiday colors or our more seasonal colors going to start turning on? It will give you another indicator of the way that everything is selling. And you can start to use that to compare to previous reports that you've generated within the tool. We can schedule report deliveries so that you have them either sent to your email, or you can export them in Excel as a CSV, as a PDF if you'd like, and then save those down so that you can kind of compare over time, how have things been progressing Is my penetration of white starting to shift as we head one direction or another? Just like in the other reports, these are all toggleable between the classes that are driving the color sales. If you wanted to look at a different way, you could shift that around and maybe now it's class color, reload that and see, all right, within knits, which colors are driving. Right now we have no sorting on, and you'll notice that black is actually performing the best, but it's living in the middle. You could bring on a sort and sort by your gross sales units. We can do that descending, so high to low. And now black is driving the sales within our knits class. This also adjusted it so that your class, so it's going to be class high to low, then color high to low. So underneath that, brown and black kind of even there. Your outerwear, you have a lot of different colors. So this will give you that indicator of how are things shifting. This would be another one too, where if you did want to pull in different time groups to see the way that something's living over time, you could. The only thing to be cognizant of is depending on how many metrics you have across the top, it might significantly expand your data. So if I were to go, we're looking at last 4 weeks. If I pulled in a week, you'll see it loads here, but each metric is going to be broken out with a total and then it's weeks underneath that. If that's not a way that you wanted to look at it, you can shift things around. And now we have each week across the top with the specific metrics going down the side. You can also pull your metrics up or down depending on how you want to look at something. So I know we're moving kind of quick through that, but it's just an indicator that these views are super toggleable depending on what you want to look at. Now we have by class, by color, same thing. This is where those conditional formattings would come in handy. So you can see what areas you do want to focus on. And just like in merge plan, you just want to save it down because once you refresh it, it's going to bring you back to the original formatting of the view that you're looking at. 2 other views, and then I'll pause for some questions and we'll dive into the process to get some reporting deliveries as well as your PDF exports and kind of give you an idea of what that will look like. So once we've gone through, we've analyzed our color selling, this is where we can start to look at maybe we want to know some open to buy information to get a sense of what do I actually need to start planning in my item plan this year? I know from a merch plan perspective what areas I have opportunity. I know from a general style perspective, what styles are performing well, what colors are performing well. I'm starting to build out a strategy for which items I want to maybe look at my sales forecasts for and reforecast. I'm also wanting to consider, where is my open to buy living? Do I anticipate that I might be short on some items based on where things are delivered? So this is an open to buy. It's by style. And again, you can group things down, but we have our jackets. We have the image URL that you can pull in. You have the unit ticket cost, and then you have your receipts on order and your open to buy. Your receipts are going to be plan. Your on orders are actual, and then your open to buy is the difference between the two. So, we have -7 units, not something super scary to look at. Anything that's green is an out of the box conditional formatting, meaning I am open. I have to place something here. So if we're looking at this sweatshirt, we are really open. We have a receipt plan of 1,200, almost 13,000 units. We have only about 8,300 on order. And we have this 4,400 that are still remaining open. This is a great place if this falls within your categories. Hey, I need to go revisit this item. And same thing, you can change your timeframes looking across the top, pulling in visualizations if it makes sense for you. And this is where you can also start to leverage some of your groups too. If you want to pull it into a, let's say, class level, you could pull your class in. And maybe I just want to take out my style name. And now I'm looking just by the specific classes that are living in there. Your tickets and your costs and your URL are going to get a little bit wonky when you make changes like that. So this is where you'll then need to kind of come into your attributes that you have pulled in. Maybe these don't actually make sense for me to look at anymore. And I just want to look at my classes. So this is one piece to leverage as you are building out your reports. Depending on the edits that you make, certain attributes might not be relevant anymore, but you can always pull them back in if you realize, actually, yeah, I want to look at this in a different way. And to do that, it's the same way that you're adding or removing metrics and variants. You just come into your attributes and you can type them in and then bring them into the view that you're looking for. If you have multiple selected, you can drag and drop depending on what feels better for the order that you want to look at things. The last report I want to dive into is from more of an analysis perspective. So this is if we're analyzing our sizes. We've looked at top line, we've looked at categories, we've looked at styles, we've looked at colors, but the last level that you might want to report on is my performance by size. This is where you can also start to build out some of your strategies when you're thinking about how you're breaking down some of those sales plans that you're forecasting within the tool, some of the size spreads that you might want to utilize across other modules. So this is a size scale report. And within this, we have a lot of filters and a lot of groups here, but this is where we have our sizes broken down. We can see what our actual was for the last 4 weeks, how that compares to the BOP and the EOP of the time period. Those might not be metrics that you want to look at, so you could take them out, but this is your starting point for really building out some robust size spreads if that's something you're utilizing within the tool, because you're leveraging your history to get a percent contribution of this specific size scale. So if I'm looking small, well, extra small through extra, extra large, I can get assigned percentages based on actual performance for a specific product to start leveraging some of the information I already have to build out something to future plan. This is also another great one that can be manipulated and adjusted depending on how you want to look at things. So right now we are filtered to a specific jacket. Maybe I don't want to look at that jacket. I just want to look at outerwear in general. Now I see all of the styles that fall underneath that and how they're grouped by size. This would be where you want to maybe bring in your show total so that you're looking at the total of a specific jacket. And you can see the Archie jacket sold almost 200 units. But when you break it out, it was only a size large that we were selling. If we go back to our Blake jacket, you can see the distribution of all of the sizes underneath that and how they sold. And you can bring this up even higher and higher to adjust how you are performing by a specific size. Even if you wanted to go down to the department level, we can take out our style. And now we can see division, department, and underneath the classes, what sizes were driving that. Another thing to show within your reporting functionalities and kind of just a Toolio use case in general is if you were looking at a higher level. So I'll take this title out again. I'm looking at a bunch of different products and maybe I do have that show total on. So I'm looking just at the product level. If you had, 100, 200, 300 items in this view and you wanted to get a little bit more specific, you can always really quickly filter to something. So if you're looking at the Blake jacket, for example, you can right click. You have the option filter by. So filter by jacket. You could do the same thing, filter by outerwear. But if we bring this in, this is going to automatically bring on that filter. So now you're only looking at one product. So that's just one other way that while you're looking at things, especially if you are looking in a meeting, showing someone something, you can move and adjust these reports really quickly to get more or less specific, depending on the question that you might have been asked. The last thing to kind of focus on is, okay, we've run a lot of reports. We have a lot of reports. There are different iterations of these views, but how do I get them to actually come to me, right? So there's two ways that you could do this. we have the idea of a scheduled report, and you can decide within your settings page, I'll drive into in just a second, who does this report go to, when does it go, and it will just, and how does it get there, what format is it in, and then that will be sent. So if you know 8 a.m. every Monday, I want these 5 reports sent to my inbox, you can set that up and you'll get them delivered to your inbox so that right away when you come in, you don't even have to open up Toolio and you already have an indicator of how is my performance for the last week, for the last month. If you wanted to start creating some snapshots and start looking at saving things down over time, you can also export them as a PDF. And in order to get into exporting your reports, you utilize the check boxes on the left side of your screen, and you can right click. At the very bottom of that functions menu, you'll have export all. You can do CSV or Excel. If you are choosing Excel or CSV, you'll likely get a pop-up to ask you to go into memory mode. If you just click yes, it will bring you to a new screen. It just makes sure that everything, all the data connections are loaded in the back side of the platform, and then you'll be able to export from there. If you're choosing a PDF export, you just hit click, and it will give you this message that it was sent directly to your email. It generates for you, and then you'll get an email within a few moments, and your report will look something like this. So I loaded this up. I sent this to my email a while back, but this is the same report, just a slightly different formatting, but you will get an exact PDF of what you were looking at. So these are other ways that you could leverage the reporting. Now, if you want to schedule them, we'll navigate over to settings. And when you go into your settings page, you have across the top under organizations, you have scheduled report deliveries. So right now you can see that there is some information around which reports am I getting. So this is a weekly snapshot of this specific report. So this would be a great place to check, one, before I do start sending reports off, who's already getting something. But when I'm looking at a report, if I come into my view, on the right side, you have visualize history master, and then you have these 3 stacked dots. If you click on that dot at the very bottom, you'll have scheduled report deliveries. If you click that, you'll get a menu, which will allow you to name the report. It will give you the option to set a recurrence. How frequently are you getting it? What time are you getting it? And then you can throw in the email addresses of the individuals that would be receiving this report, and then toggle your format. You hit save, and then that would show up in the settings page that we were just in with our scheduled report deliveries here. So you'll be able to track who's getting what and when they're getting it. So that would be kind of the end-to-end of how you can leverage your reporting within Toolio, starting from a really high level top-line performance, looking a little more specifically, considering some of the KPIs that you track year over year, month over month, and then diving into how do I take that information and break it down to a unit perspective, with the idea that the gaps and the strategies that I'm coming up with are going to drive any reforecasts that I might need to make at a product level to really get a sense of where do I need to bring things in, where might we be over, and how does that then compare if I made adjustments to my item plan? How can I compare that to my merchandise plan to get a better sense, especially if there's multiple planners in the tool, of where are my opportunities and where are some of my misses, so we can start communicating those before, eliminating surprises before they happen. So Lacey, that is everything from me. I see a couple questions flowing into the Q&A, but I wanted to dive in and answer some of those as we start to wrap up. You're muted.
Sorry, muted. So the first question came in, is there a more specific way for on-order reporting? Or is there a way to look at on-order report to include styles?
Yeah. So if you wanted to look at a on-order report, you can toggle. So if we're looking at like our open to buy, for example, we could adjust this to look at just our on-order actuals, if that's all that you wanted to look at. And you can do that by just taking out receipts. We can take out open to buy. We'll let this load for a second. And now we're looking at just on order by class. Now, if you wanted to get more specific here, this is in the item plan module. So that would be the one thing that you'd want to make sure is if you want to go into a style that you are in item plan so that it pulls in that item level information. But we can adjust our attributes to pull in a style number. And depending on how this loads, so right now this is just based off of groupings. We have our class and then the style numbers underneath that and how they roll. If I filter, I'm just quickly going to filter to something a little bit smaller just so that it's not loading for us. But we can also pull in that same style number as a group. And there might actually only be one in this case, but you can start to toggle your show total. So in this case, there is only one in our data, but you can pull in your style number and you can toggle the show totals to either roll it up or look at it a little bit larger of a data set. If we did, so in this case, I removed the filter on tops, but I could look now at knits, at boots, at bags to see what style numbers do I have, one on order do I have forward looking. In the way that Toolio works, on order is going to be an actual, and then your receipt plan is truly a plan. So if you did want a comparison, you can come back into that view and we can pull in our receipt units. And maybe we only want to look at our plan. And that will now bring in by style, how much do I have on order and what is my receipt plan? And you could also pull in open to buy if you wanted to like re-bring that in. But yes, you can definitely get down to the style level.
Next question, in which module would you be able to apply these reporting analysis to future forecasts? For example, I would be building next year's overall forecast.
Yeah, so it depends on what you are, I guess it kind of depends on what module you're actually forecasting within. If you're talking item level forecasts, you would take your item level reports to utilize as a strategy for your item level planning. In the way that Toolio works, the reports can't be directly applied to any forecasting methodology. It's more so that by pulling and adjusting your reports, you're able to come up with what is my major point of analysis that I want to look at when I then consider what is it that I need to go make adjustments to within the plan. So if, for example, you were looking at let's see, bestsellers report, for example, this would be a great one to say, here's how we've been selling. Let me then start to consider what my forward-looking plan looks like. So I would take that same style number. I would go into my view if I'm in item plan, and that's where I would go into more of the workflow view. So maybe like in-season planning, filter down to that style to get a sense of where is my plan and do I need to make some adjustments from there.
The last question is for the PDF reports, can they be formatted into a standard 8 by 11 pages? So long reports always format to a single page that are not able to print legibly. At this point, this is an engineering ask that we've passed on to our product team to update the format of those PDF exports to make them more printable. Right now, they are more of a viewable on-screen type of report. And that was it for questions, unless there's any others that come in last minute. Trey, any final thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think one, thanks everybody for joining. I know we went through a lot. I think the biggest thing to take away from this is spending some time as a team to align on, what reports we currently have and what is it that we really want to get to. Practice building. And then as you're building, especially if you are currently in the tool, utilize intercom to ping us, ask us questions. And beyond that, we can continue some conversations around what support might be needed. Lastly, if there is something that you are looking to get out of the tool, leverage our product roadmap that we have access to within your settings button. You have a product update button here. This brings you to another platform where you can start to input some improvement asks. You can also upvote on some of the things that other customers have thrown in there as well. So if you're working in the tool and you're like, hey, it would be really nice if, throw that into that product update section and or check what's already there and upvote those, because that's what we also leverage when we're looking toward expanding on our offering. But other than that, that's all I got.
Awesome. So thanks everyone for attending. I know we ran a little bit long, but again, this will be recorded and sent out. I know some people had to drop a little early, but thanks so much. And we'll hope to hear from all of our current customers soon. And if you're a prospect, continue to reach out to your BDR or your AE to get a more in-depth demo scheduled. Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone.